Okay, it's restarted. Here we go. I'm Andy Warhol.
And I'm bitterly disappointed that anyone thinks that Andy Warhol deserves any type of long-term credence outside of a handful of artworks.
And this is Brew Darn Hot. Thanks for joining us. Charlie.
Lads,
don't even think about it.
stay away from that son.
Charlie is well loved here on the podcast. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, enjoy some noises. No, now he won't make noises.
No, of course he won't. He's not going to oblige you. He's his own man. Yeah, so Warholer, as he was, Andy Warholer. A strange character, an odd cat, swivel-eyed loon. He was the documentary, which is produced by your man with the glee, Ryan Murphy.
Ryan Murphy, yeah.
Is a bloody good doc. It's really good, in fact. If you are interested in New York, in particular, episodes 2 and 3 are outstandingly good.
Yeah. So if you are interested in knowing what we think about Andy Warhol, stay tuned to the rest of this podcast because I know he's on your list of favorites.
If you're not interested in Warhol, stay tuned to the end anyway, when I will play the theme from David Lynch's The Elephant Man on the bassoon.
So quickly, before we get into our list, now we will talk more about Warhol, so table that discussion. But before we get into our list, let's go through a couple of quick things that we normally do here. We talk about the stupidest thing that we saw on social media. And I think the stupidest thing that I saw on social media was, actually I saw this a while back, but we haven't made a podcast in a while. So
no, I don't believe we are.
It's Loki the cat. Just a picture of a cat with a huge fluffy mane. He looks like a lion, and his name is Loki, and he's sitting in someone's yard. I don't even know who posted it originally.
No.
It made the rounds on TikTok and Facebook. And Loki the cat.
And for a cat, he's above average. But cats will always be cats.
Yes.
I'm prejudiced. I don't care. Think what you will.
So what was the stupidest thing you saw on social media?
The stupidest thing is any time I open any app or website and other human beings are involved. They are legion. Idiocy by rank and file. But I can tell you what's annoying me on social media.
Yeah, tell me.
Well, I probably already have. I probably shouted you from another room to explain why I'm enraged
he does
about a TikTok.
Sometimes he'll send me a WhatsApp from downstairs and I'm upstairs in the workroom doing something for some clients that I'm working with, and he's WhatsApping me either pictures of Cho or something he's seen on TikTok. The
thing that's annoying me is, and it does seem to be your compatriots.
Careful, there's a lot of them listening to this podcast if I post this in the expat group. Hi, expat group.
I'm an American enophile. I don't know what the term... What's the term for that?
An American?
No. Somebody
who studies America.
Like an Anglophile.
No, that's English, isn't it?
Yeah, an Anglophile is someone who has a love and a pipe. What's the American version?
I've never met anybody like that who cares about Americans enough to study
Answers on a postcard. TikTok.
TikTok. Just every stupid video on TikTok.
There's a trend of putting blocks of Velveeta cheese, which it's not cheese. That's not cheese.
What are they doing with it? I haven't seen these.
They take like a Pyrex dish, some kind of oven-friendly dish, and they whack a 400-pound block of Velveeta in the middle,
Okay.
and then pour pasta around the outside,
Oh, so that it melts
pour
the cheese.
dry pasta,
Oh, wow.
and then milk, and then other stuff out, burgers, hot dogs,
Well, TikTokers are a bit out of hand with the food combinations lately.
and then bang it in the oven.
Yeah.
And then quick cut to scooping this monstrosity out of a pan.
I kind of want to
And
try.
then usually the cherry on the top, the absolute finishing fecking note to this
Sounds delicious. What is it?
is someone will say, oh God, I can barely let this word pass my lips because I fucking hate it so much.
Let it out, David, let it out.
Bussin.
Spell it?
Bussin.
What is that?
It's a word which is used for, oh, this is amazing, it's delicious, it's bussin'.
Oh,
It upsets me.
It doesn't have a nice ring to it. I can't imagine wanting to eat anything that is called a bussin'.
No, it's not the name of the dish.
It's
It's
just
an
a
expression
description.
of delight.
You would you would eat that Velveeta
As in,
thing,
this is delicious.
and you would eat that Velveeta thing, and you go bussin'. Wow. I don't know.
And you wonder why I'm constantly enraged.
TikTok is a cesspool of.
Look, I won't have a word said against TikTok because
Well, we do spend a lot of time on
there's
TikTok.
so many lovely, lovely dogs.
Okay, so that's so let's move on. Let's move on to our favorite album or song of the week. Is there a song that you've been listening to a lot, stuck in your head?
I went back and I listened to a bootleg, which is Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash, which is incredible, and it came out as an official release as well, not so long ago in the bootleg series called Travelling Through. I've been listening to that. It's awesome. A long time since I've listened to the bootleg, and it's incredibly good.
Amazing. Yeah. My song of the week is Philadelphia Freedom by Elton John, because I did it with a student in a voice lesson, and I've had it in my head for about 7 days straight.
It's a great record.
I love that record.
Reg at his best.
Yeah, and well, we talked about this before we went live on the pod, but this particular student wasn't showing the most enthusiasm for the type of stuff I was choosing, and had no real opinion on what he wanted to sing.
Yeah.
So I was delightfully surprised when he sends me a video of Elton John singing, what was it? That video I sent you.
Oh, Reg's rendition of I'm Still Standing.
Yeah.
Good God.
This 11-year-old, 12-year-old student sent me this video of Reg just trying his hardest to perform this song live, and it was just horrifically bad.
It's one of his better 80s tunes for me. I'm Still Standing.
And it was in that movie. That's why a lot of kids know the song. It was in an animated movie. I can't remember the name of it. About
Is it Toy Story?
No, it was a more. Okay, let's move. Let's move on.
Was it by the Ting Tings?
Do you have? Well, I figured we could talk about the Andy Warhol documentary when we get to Andy Warhol.
No.
So that has definitely been my series of the week. As far as what we've been watching on Netflix, is there anything else you want to mention? Do you want to go in on our list here?
I think you haven't mentioned the biggest news.
What's that?
The greatest and largest event that's happened in our life.
Yeah.
They have opened a Taco Bell in Kirby.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Wow. Okay, this is a whole podcast unto itself. We have to talk about Report of the Week. We have to have Report of the Week on the pod.
There's no way this will ever get to his ears. But my adoration for John Jurassic is as wide as the sky and as deep as the oceans. I love that man.
And shout out to my friend Tom, who introduced me to Report of the Week maybe a few years ago, and I couldn't stand him at first. He kept showing me the video. I kept hitting play, and like the videos are like 15-20 minutes long, and it's just him waffling about food.
Every second of them a delight.
I've grown to love them. And
his radio show as well is out of this world.
Yes.
It's really good.
So thanks to Tom for introducing me to Report of the Week, and in turn we have both been loving watching Report of the Week videos in the Taco Bell parking lot while we eat our Taco Bell that is now here in Liverpool. And let me tell you, it's better than the US Taco Bell. So how do we want to get into these this list that we have? Do you want to explain a little bit of what we did in preparation for this episode?
Very briefly, the Warhol documentary is looking at Andy really post-shooting. You don't know, Warhol was shot by a woman called Valerie...
Somebody.
Can't remember the second name.
I can't remember.
Anyway, he was shot in his studio in the factory, and it really changed his life, as getting shot will do, I suppose. And it follows him through the late 1960s into the 70s and then up to his death in 87. It chronicles really the last 10 years of his life more than anything, because that's the period that his diaries cover. And we got to talking about how we felt about Warhol's artwork, and that led to, I suppose, the artworks, the fantasy. If you had unlimited money and these works were available, what would you want to own? What are your favourite pieces of art? I suppose we ended up talking about.
Yeah, I would say favorite pieces, or just pieces that that we find interesting, pieces that we have impacted us in some way. Yeah. And I know for me, I wouldn't necessarily hang all of these, the ones on my list, but they've influenced me in some way, and I'm excited to talk about some of them.
Yeah, sure.
So
kick us off.
Okay, so first on my list is Christina's World by Andrew Wyeth. So Christina's World by Andrew Wyeth. Now, I do understand that we are talking about art on a podcast.
Yeah, there's a definite gap in the medium here.
So I'm going to try my best to briefly describe this piece of art.
Can we somehow
link it up?
Link them somewhere in show notes or something?
Yes, and maybe I can include a couple of still shots in the video when I upload this.
Yeah.
But to give you a brief description, Christina's World, it's a painting, a large painting that hangs in the MoMA, in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And it shows a girl, a young woman, who is in a field, and she's lying in the field, kind of twisted, staring back at a farmhouse way off in the distance. And it's this sweeping view of this field with the different yellows and greens and browns of the grass, and off in the distance you can see this house, this farmhouse that she's looking at. It's quite dark, it's black and gray, and it's set against a gray sky. The young woman who is in the bottom left-hand corner of the painting, she is disabled. She can't walk, but this young woman in real life refused to use a wheelchair when she was out roaming the field, because she felt like she needed to get around on her own. She wanted to be self-reliant, and she wanted to be mobile on her own terms. The scale of the painting is why I first noticed it, and I remember the day that I first saw it was actually at the MoMA. I turned the corner, and it was behind me, so at first I didn't see it, but I can almost feel it behind me, almost the glow of these auburn grasses. And then I turned around, and there it was, and I stopped dead in my tracks, And I stood there for like 10 minutes and people were just walking around. You know, people mosey around in museums and, oh, yeah, nice. I was frozen in place.
Yeah.
And it was the sheer scale. It was the brushwork, the detail of the grasses. You can see that it's the canvas shines through the grass work, but somehow you can still make out the blades.
It adds to the texture of the grass.
Yeah, you can still make out the blades of grass through the fibers of the canvas. And the detail on her dress, you can't see her face, but the way that her hands are placed, you can sort of feel her sadness. Everybody can relate to this, the longing and the sadness of like having to overcome something.
It's 1948. It's a very, very Northern American landscape, and the time in which it was painted. You have to remember, it's not that long before this that the Second World War ends. It's a period in the United States of the beginning of huge growth, huge improvements in people's lives. But there's still, after the war, there's a sense of, as much as there's a sense of the possibilities of what this new world can become, there is still the hangover of the old world, the 30s and the Depression. And in this image for me, it's an amalgamation of the two.
Yeah.
There's the new, bright, prosperous America which lies in the 1950s over the horizon.
Yeah.
While still the old world of the Depression, the Dust Bowl, what people endured in the earlier part of the century.
And you can almost see the delineation in the image where the grass gets brighter. So it's almost like you see both in the same image. Yeah. She's trying to get back to, she wants to get back to the farmhouse, but she's also comfortable where she is. She made that decision.
Yeah. It's a sense of scale.
Yeah.
It's an amazing piece of art.
Yeah.
It really is. It's incredible.
It's beautiful. So if you are interested in seeing this piece, you can go to the MoMA. It's there.
Go to the MoMA anyway.
Go to the MoMA anyway.
Just go anyway.
Yeah.
The MoMA's great. Okay, top of the shop for me.
Is this the one?
It is. It is Picasso's The Weeping Woman. Painted in 37, I think.
Yep, 1937.
1937.
You want to briefly describe what it is and what it looks like for those who aren't looking at it right now?
Sure. So The Weeping Woman is a woman who is distraught. She is not only in tears, but she's ruined by something. Now, the background to this piece, it's the final piece in Picasso's series of paintings that deal with the bombing of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. And it was sat for by his mistress.
So that's her. That's
her.
The model for that piece.
The model for the piece. Her second name was Ma.
I can't say that she's good looking or not because it's a really difficult thing to judge.
Yeah, Dora Ma was her name.
I'd be curious to know what she looks like.
She sat for this. It's about war. It's about the horror of war. It's about loss.
And for those who aren't looking at the painting, it's if you've seen a Picasso before, you know, the separation of the different features of the face. The eyes are sort of, It's a surrealist piece. Yeah, it's a surrealist piece. Different colors and shapes. She's got.
It's not quite. It can't quite be technically described as cubist.
Yeah.
It's a surrealist piece, and as Picasso, one of his last surrealist pieces as well. With Picasso, he's playing with angles, color, and shape, and color.
Yeah. And the face is segmented into different sections, really. You've got the hat, you've got the hair, you've got the eyes, you've also got the mouth and the breath and the teeth, which are white and this grayish blue, but everything else is vibrant yellow.
It's a literal gnashing of teeth.
Yeah.
It's a great piece, and when I've seen this quite a few times, we're lucky enough in the UK that this is part of the Tate's collection. When he stands in front of this, it's not the largest piece in the world, but it is a piece which is deeply, deeply moving. And if you're ever lucky enough to stand in front of it, it's not necessarily one of the sort of pieces that automatically springs to mind with Picasso. Not that it's unknown by any stretch of the imagination, but if you get a chance to see this, it's in the Tate collection, and I think it's in London at the moment.
The Weeping Woman.
If you get a chance to see it, it's well worth it.
What did you feel when you looked at this painting?
Desperately sad.
Yeah. It's
desperately sad. Is use of colour in this, the yellows, the greens. For me, it talks about the physiological effects of grief and pain, the sickness of it, the truly otherworldliness of the sense of loss is evocative, and the colour and the shapes really speak to that.
Yeah, when I look at this piece, I see the area around the mouth and the chin, and even the teardrops coming, because it's called the Weeping Woman. So your eye does sort of fall in the middle here where the teardrops are coming out, but they're like icicles, and there's such a contrast between the warm colors of the hat and her makeup and her hair, and then the stark, like, cold, angular, triangular shapes that are used to illustrate the mouth and the teeth, and it almost gives me an icy feeling. It's sort of the opposite of like what the colors seem to do. Like, it gives me this icy feeling of like, ooh, like, what is she so sad about, and which emotion is she feeling? Is she feeling them all? I don't know. It makes me anxious a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, but yet, like, I don't.
It's,
you know?
It's the genuine pain in her eyes as well.
Yeah. It's a great piece.
It's a superb piece.
The next one that I have on my list is, I'm out of order here. Okay, the Poppy Fields. Poppy Fields near Argenteuil, by Claude Monet. I wanted to include a Monet in this list because as a whole, I'm very influenced by Monet. I am a painter myself, an amateur painter, but I love florals. That's what I love to paint. He's done a lot of these. There's a ton of different poppy field paintings of this one scene from different angles. Sometimes they have people in them, sometimes they don't. So you can almost like put them together and feel like you're there. I can appreciate the way that the different parts of the painting flow into each other. So you've got this hill with these red poppies coming down, right? Oh, think Wizard of Oz, poppy fields, right? Poppy fields, there's these, it looks like a younger woman and an older woman walking through the field, but like you can't really tell where the poppies end. You can't really, like, you start to notice other things, like, oh, there's some more people in the background, but they kind of blend in with the bushes and the trees. The clouds are beautiful. It's just a beautiful piece to me, and it's very peaceful. And the brushwork is great. You can almost see the reflection of the clouds in the fields. I don't know. What do you think of this one?
Boo!
He's not into impressionists.
Get off, Monet! You stink! Boo!
Why? Tell us.
Claude Monet and all of his ilk, all of these gentrified late 19th century French painters, I have a terrible dislike of. Now, I think I know where my prejudice against this stuff lies. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s in the UK, these type of images were reproduced on tea towels, on biscuit tins. They were everywhere.
To be fair, it's the same in the States. Like, I'm sure I had a calendar with these very poppy fields on them, you know?
It as a piece of work, I mean, I don't even like the style. I don't like the style of painting, but it says nothing to me.
Yeah.
It is empty of any emotive catalyst for me.
It's beautiful, and I think when you think of like floral paintings, you can have a floral painting that's just surface level pretty. And I don't know if there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I'm okay with it. It's the type of stuff that I paint.
William Morris made the argument that art isn't truly art unless, obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but art isn't truly art unless it has function as well.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that. In fact, I don't agree with that at all. But when I look at things like this, it's kind of, yeah, I get that.
It's more empty.
There is nothing here. There is.
But wouldn't you want to go there?
No. Why would I want to go there?
Not even for the sunflower monster?
Maybe particularly not because of the sunflower monster.
Why don't you tell us the next one on your list? Let's see. Where are we at on your list?
Get off, Money.
We are on.
No one likes you. Oh, he's got cataracts. Oh, and look at the work he did. Isn't it interesting with his cataracts? Oh, he repainted them once he's had the operation. He was one of the first to have it done, you know. Get off, you stink.
I think we can have a whole podcast full of trash talking Monet.
Claude Monet.
Yeah. Okay. Next one for you.
Next one for me. I could have chosen virtually any of this artist's work. The great, the colossus, the titan that is Mark Rothko.
So why don't you give a little description for those who can't see?
I went with, it's called Light Red Over Black. The problem with Rothko is most of his work is untitled. So,
and there's not many defining features. If you look at it quickly, you really can't tell them what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what it is. It is a red canvas with a black blotch in the middle, a lighter blackish, yellowish aura type blotch on the bottom, and a very small lighter red, pinkish, peachish black blotch on the top.
Well,
this is what he thinks is great.
That is partly accurate. So this type of painting was called colour field painting. Really only exists. Yeah. Its roots are in New York, in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
It is. Why do I love these work? The scale is one.
Yeah.
One reason. If you go and see them at the Guggenheim, at MoMA, you stand in front of these towering pieces of work. There used to be a few of them in the Four Seasons dining room as well.
Really?
Yeah, I admired them while my colleague and I got squiffy drinking. What were we drinking? We went nuts and we were drinking glasses of Johnny Walker Blue Label.
Ooh.
And then I had to sell my kidney to settle the bill.
You could have sold a Rothko on the wall.
Joke's on you, I'd already damaged it.
How big are they? Do you know how big are they approximately?
Massive.
Massive. Okay.
Huge.
Like Jackson Pollock, massive?
Yeah. Easily.
I've never had the privilege of standing in front of a Rothko.
Rothko's, they are the artworks as abstract art. It's about the construction of the piece. It's about the brushstrokes. It's about the colours, how they sit together. And it's, to a certain extent, it's about projection of what you see in the work.
Yeah. I have a love-hate relationship with this type of stuff. The part of me that loves it, loves that it's a vibe, right? It's a mood. Right?
I think I remember reading in one of his books when he was trying to describe why he painted this sort of stuff. I think he said, I might be quoting wrong here, but I think he said, it's a vibe.
Get the fuck out of here. You know I'm not an art critic. I've stood in front of Jackson Pollock and had that same feeling of, like, you feel almost like a radiation of color permeating your skin. It's like laying out on a sunny day and like getting a suntan. Like, I don't do that because I've got pasty white skin. I sunburned my lip My upper lip.
Through a window.
This week, through a window. And not in direct sunlight either.
Extraordinary business.
I'm Irish. This is what we have to deal with.
This is what we deal with.
I can imagine standing in front of this, feeling the vibe of this piece. And, like, it's very hokey when I say stuff like, feel the vibe.
No.
Because
It's true. For me, part of the reason I love Rothko is I'm super interested in that time in New York City.
Yeah, it's about the cultural context.
It's about
for
the
you.
cultural context in which this work sits.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know a little bit about music and theatre and ideas that were going on in other places in the city, and how that merges into Rothko's work and the city itself, the thing about Rothko's work is the structure of them. Mm-hmm. There's something skyscrapery. Yeah. There's something monolithic.
Yeah, and I think it's got a lot to do with the scale.
Yeah.
I think if these were painted on a 16 by 20 canvas,
yeah,
you might get some of the vibes, but you wouldn't be getting monolithic vibes.
I would say anybody who looks at this image or any other Rothko and doesn't get it, once you stand in front of it, it does something else.
This is so true, and we had this conversation after we watched this Warhol documentary, and I am a firm believer now. I know I said this before we potted, but I'm a firm believer in, even though we have the privilege and the ability to go to these type of places and see these type of things that other people in other parts of the world may not have or may not have the access to, but you can't look at it in a textbook and decide if you like it or not. You need to have the experience. And something that one of the people they interviewed in the Warhol documentary really struck me. It's like, that is the finishing of the art. That is the end part of the actual artwork, is seeing it.
Marcel Duchamp.
Was that who it was? Yeah.
Duchamp has this idea, so the two tenets of what Duchamp his work stands for. Duchamp creates something called, well, he doesn't create it, he goes to a piscine maker, a toiletier, shall we say, and buys a...
That's smelly.
Well, no, they're new. They're not second-hand ones.
A toileteur. But like, if somebody introduces themselves to you and goes, I'm a toileteur, and holds out their hand for you to shake it, would you shake it? I don't know if I would. Maybe not in COVID times.
I'm gonna have to give that more. You can't just spring questions on me like that on the air.
What were you saying about the doc?
So Duchamp goes and buys a urinal. And
Carry on.
And
can we say it again?
A urinal.
It's not how you say it.
A urinal. Yeah, okay. Sure. It's called English for a reason. He buys a urinal and he goes and places it on a plinth. How do you say that? Plinth?
I don't even know what that is.
A plinth. A bloody plinth.
What's a plinth?
A column that you put artwork on. A plinth.
I don't even know what that
You too. A plinth.
We don't have that word in the States. Does anybody know if you're from the States, do you know what a plinth is?
A plinth.
Am I crazy?
It's a bloody, like a wooden column that you sit artwork on top of.
A column? A pedestal?
A pedestal, if you will.
Pedestal or plinth, leave a comment.
Either or's fine.
Carry on.
So, he puts this toilet on the thing.
The toileteur puts the artwork on the plinth.
No, Duchamp does. He just buys it off the guy.
Okay, I'm confused.
Good Lord, look, the point of Duchamp, the fountain, it's called, he buys a urinal, he puts it in an art gallery and he says, this is art because I say it's art. And it's one of the most groundbreaking ideas in art ever. And he expands that idea into saying, it is the viewer. When you view the art, you are the final piece of that artwork, and the meaning that you give it is what brings that art to life.
It was a clean urinal, right?
Yeah, it was brand new. And there's
Just
been more
checking.
than one.
Just checking.
Because every now and again, someone smashes it. Because they get really angry.
Or they just want to know if it's clean inside the little,
people
like,
people have peed in it.
Ew. Ew.
But like,
ew.
I think there's been like 4 of them. Because every now and again, someone in France gets really angry and smashes it.
Where is this again?
Well, that was a piece of work by Marcel Duchamp from like 1970. Well, it wouldn't have been 17.
I was going to say, where...
Pre-1920.
Do you know what museum it was that they put the toilets in?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, I was just curious if we
Not
could go
off the
and
top of my
smash one.
head.
Let's go smash some urinals.
It's probably in a private collection.
We have the word urinal, but it's for the place where you go.
Do you know what's a terrible word?
No.
Urinal cake. It's so disingenuous.
That's not for a podcast like this. That's for a podcast that's a little bit more dirty, and we're not going to go there.
But that's surely the point of them, is that they're not dirty.
Urinal cake? What is a urinal cake?
In gentlemen's relieving rooms, they have, they're like circular, they're almost like small hockey pucks that they throw in the urinals so it doesn't smell of pee.
Oh, okay. I mean, I get it. I don't know if we have that in the States. I don't know. I don't go in there. I don't go in the men's room. All right. Well, anyway, the whole point being is when you look at a Rothko, part of what is so great about it is you fill in the blanks. You finish the art by projecting what you feel, what you think in that moment onto the piece, right? Or
yeah, certainly,
how would you describe that?
Certainly, I think that's partly true, but I would also say is that if you want to understand Rothko,
gotta be there.
You've got to stand in front of it, but I would also say if you know a little bit about New York in the 1950s and 60s, then it makes more sense what it's about and what it is.
Yeah. Like I said, I've got a love-hate relationship with this kind of thing, and I'm still deciding how I feel about it. But I highly recommend that you go see a Rothko. The next one on my list is, let's get the title of this one right. Ooh, I might sneeze.
I've got a terrible pain in my knee.
What's wrong with us? Something's wrong with us today.
Old. That's what's wrong with me.
Old. A Norman Rockwell piece called The Triple Self-Portrait. If you are a fan of art, you probably have heard of Norman Rockwell. I first heard of Norman Rockwell playing Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego on floppy disks. And Norman Rockwell was an artist that popped up in that game all the time. He was a cartoonist, illustrator. He did do some paintings, but he was mostly an illustrator for the Saturday Evening Post. And this piece is from 1960. It's a portrait. It's a portrait of him painting a self-portrait. And while he's painting the self-portrait on the right, he's looking in a mirror on the left to get all the details right. So you see 3 versions of him. You've got the one that's facing the mirror where you can't see his face. You've got the reflection of the mirror where you can see his face, but he's wearing these glasses that sort of glare out his eyes. I don't know how you would describe that.
Yeah.
And then you've got the portrait, which you can actually see that he's painting, or that he's drawing. As a paintbrush, or it looks like a paintbrush.
It looks like a paintbrush.
And you can see his full face in that one. So in the corner, you also have his inspiration. So there's a Van Gogh in there. There's a couple of other paintings in the background there. He's pasted them up on the corner of the canvas to give him a little inspiration. And on the left-hand side, you see a couple of sketches. And I don't know, it's just really fun. He's got a helmet that I think...
It's not a fireman's helmet. It's an old fireman's helmet.
It's not a fireman's helmet. It's, I forget what exactly it was. It's a relic. It's an old... Parisian helmet from some war that someone gave him.
Oh, okay.
And I think the whole idea of that is the mixture of the old versus the new.
The classic versus the contemporary.
Yeah, because part of what Norman Rockwell had to face is, well, you're not a real artist. You're an illustrator for a newspaper. Yeah. And someone gifted him this helmet as if to say, remember, you're one of the greats. You know, you're great at what you do. You're a modern artist, and you're not any worse or any better than any of these guys. And I think it's really fun. The details are amazing. You can see his hanky hanging out of his back pocket. You can see the trash can with a ciggy in it that's smoking. You could see all the garbage and stuff that he's thrown at the can, but he's missed, You can see he's got some kind of drink open on this book over here. It's just very cute. It's very quirky. You've got a little American flag and an eagle here on top of the mirror. So it's very Americana. I love it. I also love the juxtaposition of the 3 different versions of him, and we get to see the version of himself that he wants us to see, but we don't get to see the real him. I think he lived in Maine, if I remember correctly, so it's very New England, and I love it. As someone who is an artist, an amateur one, I can feel the struggle of trying to get it right.
It's fantastic. It's a great piece. It's exactly as you say. It is high 20th century Americana. I love it. I really, really, really love it.
Good. I'm glad you like that one.
It's fantastic. I have one objection. Those trousers are cut too short.
He's tucked his shirt in.
No, his trousers are too short.
Yeah.
The way because when he sits down,
they're too high
there's too
up.
much sock.
We have very strong opinions about trousers here on this podcast.
I do. And
Sajid, can you leave us a comment and explain how we can fix Norman Rockwell's trousers? Where should they hang? Because I'm not sure I understand completely.
Sajid will tell you. The combination of blue shirt and chinos has clearly been something that has plagued the American adult male for much, much longer than I thought.
What are some other things we don't like about American fashion? We don't like cargo pants.
Horrendous.
We don't like flip-flops.
Horrendous.
We don't like the weird tucking in of shirts and sometimes not tucking in of shirts, depending on the...
That depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation. We can't seem to get that right. Anyway, it's a great piece.
It is a great piece.
Norman Rockwell.
High magazine style Americana.
Yeah.
It's very, very good.
It's very good.
So,
okay.
it's Warhol. It's arguably, I would say it's a piece of art. It is the front cover he created for the Velvet Underground album, The Velvet Underground and Nico, 67, I think. It's the screen printing of a banana on a white background. And the very cool thing was in the top right hand corner on the original LP, it says peel here, and when you peel back the banana, there is a pink peeled banana underneath. It's a fantastic piece of iconography, which is subversive, which is just such a striking image. And I will argue that it belongs in this list as a straight up piece of art and not just an album cover, because it encapsulates Andy during the days of the factory.
How so?
It is the combination of different forms of art. So what I mean by that is the screen printing to originally create the banana. On top of that, you've got the fact that, debatable, Andy is a big part in bringing together the Velvet Underground, and there is a kinetic art with the reveal of pulling off the sticker to reveal the very subversive, seedy element to New York at the time underneath. It's for me, is the pinnacle of his artwork.
Yeah, I've seen this everywhere. You see this a lot of places.
Yeah.
I remember when I spent some of the summer, I think it was 2009, I spent some of the summer in Paris, and I was walking around, so I don't remember where I was, but I saw this just graffitied on the side of buildings, and a lot of people have done derivative artwork from this image, the banana image. I don't necessarily see a lot of like the peel back thing where you see the pink underneath. I don't know if everybody knows that that's how it worked, because
Obviously,
the pink is not in the original cover.
If you went out and bought this in '67, it was there.
Yeah.
In reprints of this album, even on vinyl, they didn't.
Did they take out the little text there? Peel back.
I think I have only got a CD copy of this, and I think it's on the CD copy.
Okay.
But what they do is the reveal is in the booklets inside.
Ah, right. Okay. So you can see it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I have a hard time with calling this art. Now, I understand it is.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time figuring out in my mind where this goes in, like what kind of art is it? Now, obviously, we know historically where it comes from, the time period it was in which it was made. Andy Warhol was, a juggernaut, if that's an appropriate term, of like, an artist in the 50s and the 60s.
The most fey and slight of juggernauts,
yeah.
but a juggernaut nonetheless.
Yeah, like in his impact. But to me, it's a banana, it's a banana.
So
it's a commercialized, overblown, high contrast, shiny version of a banana.
So here's the thing. Can you not make that argument about what Warhol's work is and is about? That's the other reason that I chose it. That for all the Marilyns and Jackie Kennedys and Elvises and Jimmy Deans,
he's taken the banana and done the same thing.
The art world for a long time, during Andy's life, rejected Warhol's work, rejected him as a serious artist because of the commercialization, the perceived lack of depth to his work. And here you have a piece which is a record cover.
Yeah.
It's an album sleeve.
I almost think it's fun. It's funny. It's. I can look at that and I can appreciate it for what it is, but also it makes me it makes me laugh a little because it's a banana. It's just like, that's what it is.
Also, the themes of this album are very adult.
Yeah.
And there's a not so subtle gag there.
Mm-hmm, of course.
So there's that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the eternal conversation around
Warhol. The love-hate thing I've got going with him, yeah.
It's the commercialization of his art. Yeah. Is there any depth and meaning to it? Yeah. Is there anything more than the obvious?
I think it's interesting if you juxtapose that with what we were talking about with the poppy fields, where it's all kind of surface level, nice, like nothing much behind it. If you were to look at those two side by side, which one is the higher version of art? Like, at least with the poppy fields, to me, there's some kind of talent in creating the visual. Like, he's painted a field and he's painted individual flowers and people, and it's an impressionistic style, but you can tell what it is. Here, it's like a screen print of some picture he's taken of a banana from like some newspaper or whatever,
But there's another aspect to it is
he made the choice.
It's also about exclusivity.
Yeah.
You look at something like a Monet. You look at the setting for that work. You look at the people who are featured in that work, who it's created by, and how accessible that was, both physically accessible and as an accessible place to be for people. On the other end of that scale, you've got Warhol, who is not only creating something which is more than recognisable, even is not subversive today, but his subversive joke is still accessible to people, and it is a commercial product that will be sold to the masses.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the gag for me, is like, it's almost like you go to the store and you're shopping for a banana.
Yeah.
There it is. Now this is the best, most shiniest, yellowest banana.
Yeah.
And hey, there's a gag. When you get it, you could peel it off.
It's the hyper
It's the best banana ever.
It's the hyper real.
Yeah. So, and honestly, if we were to compare that with the poppy fields, with the impressionistic, I don't know. I can't really say that I would hang the Poppy Fields over this.
Nope.
Because this gives you, it's almost like got Rocco vibes to me.
Yeah.
Like, you can feel the commercialness of the banana. Yeah. Like, it's the yellowest banana you've ever seen.
Yeah.
You can see the little, rotting parts or whatever you want to call it, the brown parts.
The blackened parts.
They're blackened now. They're like super high contrast, To me, it's like I'd almost rather want to put that up because I'm really inspired by commercial art. I'm really inspired by the colors. I love like the neon colors. Yeah. I love the overblown like high contrast stuff. So if I had to choose which one I want to hang, I'd probably want to hang that.
And it's a damn good album.
Well, that wraps it up for our list. And that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope it wasn't massively dull.
Yeah, it's something that we both think about a lot. So I feel like it's fitting to bring it up on the podcast. And I know I have a lot of people who listen to this who are also interested in art and music and all that stuff. So.
Go and watch the Warhol documentary. Go and give it like 6 hours, but go and give it your time.
Good old Andy.
It's great.
And his robot eyes.
And his robot eyes.
And robotic voice that they AI'd his voice.
So weird, but kind of good as well.
I thought it was like strangely calming. The way that because they turned his voice into some kind of AI machine where he could read his own diary even though he's dead.
Yeah.
It was strangely calming to hear his voice, but also strange because there'd be a little hiccup in the audio every now and then where you're like, oh, this is a robot.
Yeah, very much so, but it's great. But it's a great documentary.
It's also fitting because Andy was almost like a robot.
And one says, I wish I could be a machine because I cannot deal with emotions, to paraphrase him. Yeah. There we are.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us for this version of the podcast, the art critic version. So Brew Darn Hot would also like to thank Ana Lilia Fierro for her recording of Ain't We Got Fun by Peggy Lee, and thanks to our friends and family who are listening and anybody else who's joining us.
Roll the outro.
Roll the outro.